Hey fellas, welcome back to part 4. Got the exterior painted up and got a gloss coat on it. I just need to put some decals on it. I may try to highlight some of the panel lines with a dark gray. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what it looks like once I get the decals on. I don't know that it'd be kind of a pain to try to get some panel line wash to stick in here anyway, but I don't know. We'll see when the time comes. But I've got the outside done, and I've got the interior all done. It's been really slow lately. It was moving along pretty good, and then all of a sudden I hit a brick wall, and time seemed to slow down for me. But I'm pretty satisfied with the interior. Some things are a little off. Just because it's resin and I'm not real good at working with resin apparently. But overall, I think once it gets in the plane, it's going to look pretty good. There's a famous Clint Eastwood saying that says, he says in one of his movies, a man's got to know his limitations. And I think I might have reached my limitation with this kit. One of my big issues with this kit is the flimsy clear parts. This isn't your normal polystyrene clear parts that you get with model kits, and I kind of showed you how I did the nose cone, how flimsy it was, you know, and all the clear parts are like that, especially when you get into the upper turret, and because they're vacuum formed. And I've never worked with vacuum formed plastic before, and I hope I never work with it again. But the edges, you can see that the edges aren't real defined. So trying to get in there and cut how I normally do, because what I normally do is lay a piece of tape over and then burnish it in and use an X-Acto knife once I find my edge, and mask off the windows that way. It was really hard. I almost had to guess half the time. I think I got it pretty close, but you know, it's not perfect. It's just a difficult thing to work with. So I got that going for me. Let's see. What else do I got? Well, let's look at what I got painted on the interior. And I think it, like I said, I think it turned out okay. Once you get it closed up, I mean, it's going to cover up some of the flaws anyway. So let's take a look at what I got. Here's my scratch built floor, and I think it turned out pretty good. A lot better than that straight wooden piece that they give you. Because in the real B17, there's a ledge, a step up, and obviously with that wooden piece you don't have that. So I basically just did my wood technique and dirtied it up a little bit, and I think that will suffice. So here is the fabric that I made. Again, it's not perfect, but I'm getting better at it. And again, I think once you get in there, I may put a super flat coat on that just to differentiate it from the rest of it. The seat belts, they're homemade. Oop, that one kind of came up. I'm gonna have to fix that. But they're homemade from tape, and just used my Rosie the Riveter, and then washed it with a sepia ink. I'm gonna have to fix that one seat belt. What I really like is the instrument panel, and you know, I used scrap. They give you like the paper where they give you these paper placards to put on there, but I mean they're not real defined. And so what I did is I just pulled out my spare decals and took some white decals and put them on there. And then I also used cut some yellow and red decal in real thin strips and made that little surround over those instruments on the right hand side. And then I did use the paper backing for the instrument dials, and I think they turned out really good. I glued them on with some white glue, and then took gloss Mod Podge and filled in where the dials were, so there's kind of a glossy, like a glass-like front to the dials, and I think that turned out really well. I also added some decals to the console, and then the kit decals that I've used so far I think are pretty good. There was no silvering. I mean, there's a lot of carrier film, but it's not glossy, and they just go down really well. You can't really see the carrier film once you get it on. We'll see how that works out on the decals on the outside of it, but these decals went down pretty good. They're pretty strong but yet malleable. They sink down in really well with a little bit of microsol microset. So I added a little bit of wiring. I didn't try to replicate all the wiring that I've seen, but I think that's just the predominant stuff. You know, pictures I've seen in my reference pics. There's the wiring along the top here. I just kind of added that, and then some piping over here to these thingamabobs, which I don't really know what they are. Added some hoses from one of my MAK kits. I had some extra hoses, so I just added those in. Again, it's not perfect, but you know, it is what it is. The desk, I think that turned out really well. Again, this was all scratch built, and that's gonna fit in on the floor just like this, and into the bombardier's compartment. There's my homemade lamp out of a few different scratch parts. This turned out a lot better than I thought it would, the Norden bomb sight. Added a little bit of a yellow decal to the side there, some clear plastic where the lenses are, and then I've got a little lens that goes on here, but it fell off, so I'm gonna have to reattach it. But I used a little bit of Mr. Surfacer on this casted part, or this sculpted part that's supposed to be like a cast metal, and I think that turned out pretty good. So that will, I think it fairly resembles a Norden bomb sight. You know, it's not perfect, but you know, I think that'll look good in there, right on the front. So one other thing, trying to get these guns on the front turret aligned so I could drill my holes up here on the shroud was a real trick. And I ended up like super gluing them and setting them and then moving them and peeling them off. I ended up using some plastic card to raise them, and so I could set them out a little bit so they line up with this area right along here where the barrels are supposed to be. So I didn't have them like cross-eyed. So they're relatively straight. So once I get this in, I can glue this on and then stick the barrels through and glue them into the gun, and that shouldn't be an issue. So yeah, that was a little bit of a pain, but I got her done. What else? These are my belts. I don't really like how they turned out, but I'm gonna try to work with them a little bit more. If you can see that, the lighting's not real good, but I think I may use some metallic and just dry brush some metallic shades over it and see how that works out. And I don't know, I may scrap them, I may not. All the other instruments, the instrument dials here I just painted and then glossed over with Mod Podge. So here's my other seat. I added some decals to, ooh, I still need to add decals to this, to the ammo boxes, but, and that's about it. This thing, And like I said before, my main issue with this kit is these flimsy plastic parts. And yeah, I added this lip that's going to fit on there, just like so. Get it aligned. But still, there's going to be a noticeable seam. And this isn't on, I mean, it's, I don't know, I don't like it, but we're going to have to live with it because I can't really make any more mistakes on this, because if I do, it's ruined and then we don't have a nose cone. So that's one of my big issues with this kit is this plastic part. I would have preferred if they could have cast it in resin, like a clear resin. I think that would have been a lot better. But instead they gave you this vacuum form stuff that I hope I never have to work with again. It's absolutely horrible. So if there are other guys out there that have worked with it and know tricks that I don't, let me know. But I sure as heck don't like the stuff. So yeah, we're just gonna have to live with it looking like that, and you know, I don't like it, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna get on with putting on some decals and getting the clear coat on it, the flat coat, and then get the windows in, and then the interior. Oh, and then one other thing on the these little, like where the wings attach. Some of the reference pictures I found like a diagram, and there are all these little like wires and tubes and stuff where all the wiring for the wings go through. So I ended up cutting some aluminum tubing, different sizes, and putting them in there, gluing them in there. And then I've got some, once I paint this, I'll paint this like an aluminum finish once I get the interior in, because then I have to do some filling and work on that. And then once I get all that painted, what I'm going to do is add some copper wire. Let's see if I get some of this stuff in there, in all those little holes I'll cut out, because this has kind of got like the black, the dark brown casing, and then there's the copper wire inside of it, and I'll cut out little pieces and fill in all those holes to make it look like it's supposed to be there, and that it was supposed to be going to something. So that's about it. I can probably remove my tape from the inside. And okay, I'm gonna get to work on decaling, and part 5 should be the final video. Catch you then.